Now, chat, I don't know what this video is. I'm not gonna lie to you, but as y'all know, and if y'all don't know yet, I like drifting. I like driving cars. I like cars. I like motorcycles. I love it all. That's why I make videos of that caliber. Now, this video is the hunt for the most wanted drifter. And with that being said, we're just gonna go ahead and get straight into it. Personally, I ain't got nothing else to say. I love y'all. Let's go ahead and get straight into it. Oh my goodness.
Just one man, one BMW M5, and the streets of
Oh
Tbilisi
my
as his race.
Did he just have a gun in his hand? Hold up.
Man, one BMW M5,
Look at this man over here.
and the streets of Tbilisi as his racetrack. That man was Georgi Tevzadze,
Okay.
the Drift King of Georgia. Back in 2013, this video hit YouTube and went viral, racking up over 10 million views.
Damn.
Georgi wasn't just fast, he was surgical. Every drift, every slide through traffic was perfect. But here's the thing, legends like this never last. And for Georgi, the same streets that made him famous would soon become the ones that took everything away. The culture that built a Drift King. Understanding why Georgi became the Drift King of Georgia requires understanding what happened when the Soviet Union collapsed in 1991. Georgia went from being part of a superpower to complete chaos almost overnight. 4 armed conflicts broke out within the first few years of independence. The economy collapsed so hard that the national currency became basically worthless. Civil strikes shut down entire cities. The government cycled through authoritarian leaders who couldn't maintain basic order.
Damn. I didn't know it was gonna be a history lesson, chat. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I'm not the biggest history person, but what I can tell you is that I'm a learner. I learn shit. So we're gonna learn this shit together. Soviet Union, don't remember who the fuck they were. But what I can tell you is nothing. Let's go ahead and get back. Let's go ahead and get right back to it.
Grew up in that environment. The idea of following rules.
Let's actually rewind it because
became basically worthless.
Okay, they money
shut down entire cities. The government cycled through authoritarian leaders who couldn't maintain basic order. For people who grew up in that environment, the idea of following rules felt meaningless because the rules kept changing depending on who had power that week.
That week? They was changing presidents every week? Hey, where was this at? Russia? Soviet Union. Where the fuck was Soviet Union at? You know what? Sorry.
And in the middle of all that chaos, something interesting started happening. Used German cars, especially BMWs, started flooding into Georgia from Western Europe. Western Europe cycles through cars incredibly fast. A BMW that's only 3 or 4 years old in Germany gets sold off cheap and shipped east to countries like Georgia, where people are desperate.
Where the fuck is Georgia? I thought we was talking about South Carolina, Georgia. Word. Like, Georgia's a country? And they was shipping off BMWs there, apparently.
Desperate for reliable vehicles. For Georgians who had spent their entire lives driving Soviet-made cars that struggled to hit 60 miles per hour and handled like shopping carts, getting behind the wheel of a used BMW M5 wasn't just an upgrade, it was stepping into a completely different reality. These cars became instant status symbols. Owning a BMW meant you had figured out how to succeed in the new capitalist system.
Hey, that's how it is in America. Shit, and now that I'm starting to understand, the Soviet Union was in Germany, apparently is what I'm hearing basically. But that's how it is in America. If you got a BMW, when I was a kid, if you had a BMW, nigga, you're him. Shit, even now, my grandma tell me, hey, you better not get no BMW for your only car. They expensive. Shit, so if you got a BMW, you made it in America too. Word.
You had money, connections, and the ability to navigate a world that was still figuring out its own rules. And for young men who had grown up surrounded by violence and instability, Driving these cars recklessly became a form of rebellion against a system that had failed them for their entire lives. Georgian
Those
traffic
BMWs sexy.
enforcement in the 2000s was almost non-existent. Police were underfunded, poorly trained, and dealing with corruption at every level. Even after major reforms started in 2003 under President Saakashvili's government, traffic violations were mostly handled with fines. There was no point system, no license suspensions for repeat offenders. You just paid the fine when you got caught and moved on.
Damn.
Georgie was born in 19 inside the country.
What the
Orthodox
fuck?
first time how to succeed in the new became a form of rebellion against a system that had failed them for their entire lives. Georgian traffic enforcement in the 2000s was almost non-existent. Police were underfunded, poorly trained, and dealing with corruption at every level. Even after major reforms started in 2003 under President Saakashvili's government, traffic violations were mostly handled with fines. There was no point system, no license suspensions for repeat offenders. You just
had to
paid
pay
the
the
fine
ticket.
when you got caught and moved on.
Damn.
Georgie was born in 1987 in Tbilisi and spent part of his childhood in Russia before returning to Georgia. He got
Damn.
behind the wheel of a car for the first time at 13 years old.
Damn.
And by his mid-20s, he had become the undisputed center
Wait.
of
Now that I think about it, chat, I got behind the wheel of my first car when I was about 15 too. What? Well, he said 13. I was about 15 when I drove my mama truck for the first time I ever drove a truck, bruh. And that motherfucker, you know what I'm saying? Work. Look. Actually, now I think about it, ain't that normal? Like, how old were y'all when y'all drove y'all first car? I don't know.
years old. And by his mid-20s, he had become the undisputed center of Georgia's illegal street drifting scene. He wasn't just good at driving, he was surgical with it. Every gap between cars was threaded with precision. Every
Hold up.
drift was controlled. Every lane change was calculated 3 moves ahead.
Is this the
But
new
car
squeeze
culture
bin?
alone doesn't create viral
This might be the first squeeze bin, chat. Hold up. Did y'all hear what he said? Just listen.
was threaded with precision. Every drift was controlled. Every lane change was calculated 3 moves ahead. But car culture alone doesn't create viral videos with 22 million views.
Damn.
Something else was happening in the early 2000s that made Georgie's timing perfect. YouTube was exploding as a platform, and Eastern Europe had developed its own version of Fast and Furious culture
Oh my
through
God.
movies that glorified exactly the kind of driving Georgie was doing in real life. Movies like Taxi, The Transporter, and German shows like
Hey man, what y'all know about these movies? Bro, Taxi was one of my favorite movies. Bro, Taxi.
Farm for Cobra. 11 had been dubbed into Russian and Georgian, and were playing on repeat across the entire region. These weren't just action movies, they were instruction manuals for a generation of young drivers who saw high-speed chases through traffic as the ultimate form of
Goodness.
self-expression. And when YouTube made it possible to film that lifestyle and share it with the world, Georgie and his friends saw an opportunity that nobody else in Georgia was taking seriously. They called their YouTube channel Need for Drive, borrowing the name and lettering style from the Need for Speed video game franchise. They didn't just upload dash cam footage of street races, they produced full documentaries with professional cinematography, carefully selected soundtracks, and editing that would make most film students jealous. This wasn't amateur hour. This was a calculated effort to turn illegal street racing into a legitimate media brand. And for a while, it looked like it was going to work. The video that made Georgie Tevsadze internationally famous dropped on April 19, 2013. It opened with 2 BMW M5s, his dark purple E34 and a red one driven by a friend, racing through the packed streets of Tbilisi during rush hour. The driving footage was genuinely insane. Georgie
This
and his
shit sound
friend
crazy.
were weaving between commuter cars at over 100 miles per hour,
Damn.
drifting through intersections with pedestrians standing 10 feet away, and at
Damn.
one point driving directly into oncoming traffic while police cars sat parked on the side of the road watching it happen. The skill on display was undeniable. These weren't kids with a death wish. These were drivers who had spent over a decade mastering their craft.
They drove right past that police officer.
Меня, знаешь, что удивляет? Вы видите патрульную тачку, ты замираешь буквально на 1,5 секунды просто для того, чтобы сказать «патруль», и все, и потом опять вот это начинается.
I don't know what the fuck they saying, but it sounds like they having fun.
But the
Word.
video showed something deeper than just reckless driving. It gave viewers a window into Georgian life that felt completely foreign to anyone watching from outside the country. Orthodox churches appearing in the background of drift sequences, scenes of Georgie and his friends drinking heavily between runs, mountain roads covered in snow where they practiced drifting in conditions that would terrify professional rally drivers. The entire thing had this melancholic atmosphere that separated it from every other street racing video on YouTube. The video exploded. Within weeks, it had millions of views. Comment sections filled up with people from Russia, Europe, and the United States trying to figure out who this guy was and how he wasn't dead or in prison yet. Motorcycle forums and car culture websites started dissecting every frame of the video looking for clues about how the Georgian street racing scene actually worked. And Georgie was ready to capitalize on it. In an interview with Reuters published in April 2013, just weeks after the video dropped, he made it clear that this wasn't just a hobby anymore. He told the reporter that he wasn't trying to scare anyone. He wanted to attract attention from Hollywood. He wanted to open an extreme driving school in Georgia where he could teach people how to handle dangerous situations on the road safely and legally. He wanted to turn everything he'd built underground into a legitimate business.
Zauważeni przez kogoś z Hollywood, gdyby zaproponowali nam pracę, moglibyśmy robić wszystko. Jesteśmy przygotowani na każdy najbardziej ekstremalny scenariusz przy największych prędkościach.
When the Reuters reporter asked him about legal trouble, Georgie's answer was telling. He admitted that he was regularly fined by traffic police, but he also said that he still legally had his driver's license and that the videos were shot quite a long time ago, so he didn't see them as a legal problem. His logic was simple. If police couldn't prove he was the driver during a specific violation, then posting old footage wasn't technically illegal. That was the same logic Ghost Rider used in Sweden a decade earlier. Film everything. Release it after the statute of limitations starts running out. Stay ahead of the system long enough to retire on your own terms. But Georgie wasn't operating in Sweden. He was operating in Georgia, where the rules were changing fast. By 2013, Georgian traffic enforcement had improved dramatically compared to the chaos of the 1990s and early 2000s. Police were better funded. Corruption had been reduced significantly under the Saakashvili government's reforms, and international attention was forcing the country to take traffic safety more seriously if it wanted to be seen as a legitimate European nation instead of a lawless post-Soviet backwater. Sources from the time confirmed that police were stopping Georgie constantly to check his documents. His car was too recognizable.
I don't know, something might be a little racist about that. You just stopping me just to see if I got documents and shit. Nigga, don't I look like I belong here? No, I don't. Oh, word.
His face was too famous. Every time he got behind the wheel, there was a chance he'd get pulled over just because police knew who he was and what he represented. The fines were piling up. And while Georgie claimed in his Reuters interview that he still had his license, other sources suggest that might not have been entirely true. According to reports that surfaced after his death, Georgie's driver's license had...
He died? Bro, rest in peace, the most wanted drifter in the motherfucking world, man. Giorgiano, nigga. Damn, my nigga died, nigga. He inspiring me just off the strength of his energy. This nigga inspiring me. That's crazy. Hey, One day I inspire to be like you, Nick. Not chased by the police. But, you know, sometimes I just want to get behind that wheel and go skirt. Fuck you talking about, Nick?
Been confiscated by authorities for dangerous driving while making his videos. The exact timeline is unclear, and Georgie's April interview contradicts this, but what's certain is that the legal pressure was increasing. The viral success that was supposed to launch his career was actually making it impossible for him to keep doing what made him famous in the first place.
Damn.
Think about the position he was in. 22 million views, international media attention, talks about Hollywood deals and legitimate business opportunities. But every time he drove his car, he risked getting stopped by police who were now under public pressure to do something about the guy making Georgia look like a country with no traffic laws. Ghostwriter in Sweden could release DVDs for a decade because Swedish law required physical identification.
That nigga Ghostwriter, tough. Hey man, I made a video about Ghostwriter. If you want to go watch that video, it's actually doing pretty well on my channel. Go ahead and click that that channel and then go find the video. Where? I dropped it yesterday. It was a video I dropped yesterday. So yeah.
During an actual violation, Georgie was operating in a system where the rules were murkier, enforcement was inconsistent, and viral fame was forcing authorities to make an example out of someone they'd ignored for years. The hunt wasn't a chase, it was a clock ticking down. And Georgie had 2 months between viral success and finding out how that hunt would end. The crash and what it meant. On June 22nd, 2013, around 3 a.m., Georgie was sitting in the passenger seat of his black BMW M5 on a winding road near Batumi, Georgia. His friend was driving. They were coming down a section of road they'd probably driven hundreds of times before. According to witnesses, they were maybe 40 meters from their destination when the car skidded, lost control, and slammed into a tree at full speed. The passenger side took the main impact. Here's a look at a reconstruction of the accident.
Oh my God, Georgie, one of the most famous, most wanted drivers. Oh my. Nigga didn't even die from his own mistake. This remind me of Paul Walker. Oh my God. Hey man, rest in peace.
Georgie died instantly. His friend survived. There was no alcohol involved, according to Eric Davidovich, a well-known Moscow street racer who witnessed the aftermath and confirmed the driver was sober. It was just a skid that went wrong at the worst possible moment. 26 years old, recently married, 13 years of driving experience, viral success that was supposed to launch a legitimate career, plans for an extreme driving school, talks about Hollywood deals. All of it ended on a road in Batumi while he wasn't even behind the wheel.
That's what
the
I'm
irony
saying.
Wasn't lost on anyone. Georgie had survived years of threading through traffic at over 100 miles per hour. He'd survived drifting on icy mountain roads in conditions that would kill most professional drivers. He'd survived every single high-risk maneuver that was captured on camera and watched by millions of people. And then he died as a passenger in a routine crash on a road he probably knew by heart. Public reaction split immediately. Some people said it was inevitable. That reckless driving always catches up eventually, and Georgie's death was proof that you can't cheat physics forever. Others mourned him as a genuinely talented driver who could have been a motorsport star if he'd been born in a country with better infrastructure and more opportunities. Folk hero or cautionary tale, legend or criminal. Nobody could agree, but here's...
Man, that nigga was a legend, nigga. What's wrong with you? I'm surprised I'm just now hearing about this nigga. That's word. I'm glad I got to make this video to spread his name around, man. The energy never died. Word. And for him not to be word, man, shit made me mad. Man, it's like the Paul Walker situation. Niggas dying because niggas want to look cool in front of the actual driver. Niggas want to be something they not. See, man, stay in your lane, nigga. Word.
What nobody could argue. Georgie died before he found out what the hunt was actually going to look like. He died before court proceedings could play out, before police could build a case strong enough to take his license permanently or put him in jail, before
Damn.
the viral fame could either destroy him or launch the legitimate career he was planning. A lot of tributes were made, and here's a quick look into one of many.
Oh my God. Damn, bruh. Rest in peace, Georgie, man. Damn.
His friends proved the model worked. Eric Davidovich became one of the biggest car YouTubers in Russia with over 4 million subscribers.
That's the nigga that got him killed? And y'all went to go subscribe to that nigga? You know what? I'm gonna let y'all have it. Work.
The production team behind the documentary, likely operating under the channel Tar Rubin, now has over 1 million subscribers. The Need for Drive channel went dormant for years after Georgie's death, but came back eventually. His friends rebuilt his BMW. They posted tributes, they continued making content, and they turned the Georgian drift scene into a legitimate media brand that makes millions of dollars. They did everything Georgie was planning to do. They just lived long enough to see it happen. The hunt for Georgie was never going to be a high-speed chase through Tbilisi with helicopters overhead and spike strips on the highway. It was always going to be paperwork, court dates, escalating fines, a legal system that was slow and inconsistent, but was finally paying attention to the guy who'd been embarrassing them on the international stage. And Georgie died before that hunt could finish. Before we could find out if he'd end up in prison like Antonio Ginestri, the squeeze-bend street racer who got 5 years for filming himself racing through Miami. Before we could find out if he'd successfully transitioned to legitimate content like his friends did after his death. Before we could find out if Georgian authorities would make an example out of him or let him fade into obscurity. So what do you think? Was Georgie a drift legend who just pushed it too far, or a reckless outlaw who got exactly what was coming?
What?
Drop your thoughts.
What? Bro, those two questions sounded like the same end of the backhand. Nigga, that nigga Georgie was Georgie. And for y'all to like, man, look. Not once in this video did I see him run over a nigga, almost hit a nigga. Quite frankly, he did the opposite. And because he could keep his art as art, he deserved all praises. Hey man, rest in peace, Georgie. I'm so glad that I got to learn about you, Georgie. If y'all want more content, if y'all interested in content like this, continue to like them videos. I love y'all. We posting a video damn near every day. And I'm out.